if you want to follow the workshop, so I have created this notebook here. There is some code already in the notebook. There's let's say handy to do the full workshop. Okay, so you can make a copy of this one and make and write your own code. Okay, so it will be your own notebook. And I have also here the solution in case I get stuck. Okay, so but I will share it at the end. Okay, I don't want you to be looking at the solution just now. Okay, because the solution before you face the problem is poison. Okay, so if you look at the solution, you are already tainted. Okay, so the solution may look easy when you see it already done. It's not the same when you have to do it from scratch. And learning is about that. Okay, it's about creating the solution from scratch yourself. So what we are gonna be doing today? So we're gonna write the pipeline in Apache Beam using Google Colab. Okay, so there's no need to do any kind of infrastructure. One of the things of Apache Beam is that you can run your pipelines locally. So that's how we're gonna be using it. Actually, we're gonna be using the so-called interactive runner. So we're gonna write a pipeline that takes some inputs, applies some prompts, and calls Gemini to get the answer for these prompts, and then offer the answer of these prompts as output. So you may be wondering, what is Apache Beam? So Apache Beam is a framework for data processing. It's a unified framework for real-time streaming and batch data processing. And you can also write your pipeline in different languages. Today, we're going to be using Python, okay? Because the example, let's say, fits very well for Python, but you can also use Java and another Go and other programming languages. And another really nice thing that I like a lot from Apache Beam is that it's multi-runner. So you may run it in many different systems. So I work at Google and I use it a lot in my professional work in Dataflow in Google Cloud as a cloud engineer. But you can also use it on top of Flink, and lots of customers actually. I've seen customers that use it on top of Flink, and if you look, for instance, in the Beam Summit sessions, there are always large companies using Beam on Flink, on Spark, and on many other places. So this is the main page of Apache Beam. Okay, so this is just for your information. Okay, you don't need to download anything from here or anything, just to follow the workshop. Okay, so if you want to get started with Apache Beam, in addition to the workshop that we're going to be doing today, so you have this page with lots of materials, okay, and this tour of Beam that I like a lot. So I totally recommend you going and trying some of the exercises. But what we are going to be using today is actually the ML capabilities of Apache Beam. Okay, so here in the documentation, you have this get started with AI and ML. And you can do a lot of things. What we're going to be doing today is prediction and inference using a transformation that's called RunInference. Okay, I'm not going to enter into lots of details here in the documentation, so we will see that in the workshop. But you can have a look here at the page. And don't miss this banner here that we have here about the Beam Summit. So it's going to be in New York in July. So, and I completely recommend you going to the Beam Summit. So I remember the first time I attended the Beam Summit, I was a little bit afraid, I have to say, because really like to these kind of things, like I thought that you had to be an expert to be able to attend the Beam Summit, but truth is that there are sessions for all kinds of profiles and all kinds of experiences with Apache Beam. And even myself, I have given a couple of introductory workshops at the Beam Summit too. So yeah, so even if you are, let's say, if this is the first time you heard of Beam, so Beam Summit is probably a place to go. So just check out the banner for that. So now, this is the code. I'm going to be writing some code here, but in order to be able to use Gemini from our notebook, we're going to need an API key. Okay, so I recommend you going to AI Studio, and you can generate here an API key. Let me just put this. You click this button. You can create it for free. Okay, which is really like the nice thing about this. Okay, so I have already here an API key already created. Okay, so for this workshop, you cannot see the details of the API key because this is my personal API key. But once you create it, you don't need to copy it. Okay, so we're gonna see how AI Studio and Colab are actually integrated, and so we will be able to import this from here. So create an API key here for free. Don't worry, just follow the instructions. You don't need any kind of billing enable or anything to do this. You have a certain number of calls that a limit in the number of calls that you can make, which is far more than enough for what we are going to be doing today here. Okay. In my case, you see here the billing because for personal reasons, I also pay for Google Cloud with my personal Gmail account. Okay, but you don't need billing for this. Okay, once you are in the notebook, and before we start with the notebook, so we're going to go step by step in the notebook. If you see here this button in Google Colab here on the left, like there's a key button, like with the shape of a key. So you see here this Gemini API keys. Okay, so you can just click here, import key from Google AI Studio. Okay, let me click this. Okay, see, this is the same key that it was shown before. Okay, so let me import it here. Okay, and here is already my key ready to be used. Okay, so once you have done this, I will just close this, and then we can start. So I'm gonna start. The first thing that we need to do here in this notebook is to install the Apache Beam. So this is why. So why is this? Because Google Colab doesn't come with Apache Beam by default. Okay, so I should have actually called the cell before, so because it's gonna take like a few seconds to install everything. So Apache Beam comes with different packages in Python. So we're gonna be using the interactive runner. There is also the Apache Beam GCP, for instance, for Google Cloud runners, the Apache Beam Spark or Flink, and so on. Okay, so this is gonna install all the required dependencies. Once Apache Beam is installed, so we can start writing our own pipeline here. Okay, just bear with me while this is installed. When it gets installed, so this will not be highlighted in yellow because Beam will be already here. Apache Beam comes with a lot of stuff. Okay, so that's why it's taking a while to install. So there are a few other dependencies that needs to install in the notebook as well. Okay, so you may see here some errors, like don't freak out. So this is actually normal. There's no error. So in order to run a pipeline with Apache Beam, we need to set some options. So here today we're going to be developing a streaming pipeline, a pipeline that processes data continuously. So that's why we need to pass this -- streaming option, and we're gonna be using the interactive runner, just because when we are working with a notebook, well, so it's nice to see what are like the outputs as we go, right? So we don't want to have to run the full pipeline to see some output. Okay, so I'm gonna run these two cells, and then what are we gonna be doing as an exercise? So this is the prompt that we're gonna be using. So we're gonna be passing as input some country names. Okay, so I have a few examples here, and we are asking the model to tell us what is the capital of this country. Like for instance, if we say France, it should tell us Paris, right? However, if we pass Switzerland, we should make the model reply only with this example. There's no officially recognized capital. Okay, so it should actually just reply the capital, nothing else. Okay, so we are creating this prompt to try to force the model to behave in this way. Well, I don't know if you knew, but Switzerland actually doesn't have a capital city recognized by its constitution. So there's actually no real capital in Switzerland. So there's a city where the government is, which is Bern, but that's it. Okay, but there's actually no officially recognized capital. And if you go to Gemini by default, it will tell you all this story. Okay, so anyways, so this is the prompt that we're gonna be running, and this prompt is just one string. Okay, you see here, so that we created this string. Okay, and then this is the list of queries that we're gonna be using as input in our pipeline. We can put more countries here if you want. But I'm gonna use this as an example. And then the transform that we're gonna be using is called RunInference. So I have shown the Beam documentation before. RunInference is what we call in Beam a turnkey transform. Turnkey because it's a super handy transform that is super easy to use. So you just use it and that's it. And RunInference allows you to call a model to do a prediction. You can use a PyTorch model, TensorFlow model, scikit-learn. You can use a Hugging Face pipeline as a model as well. And you can do a lot of stuff. And if, for whatever reason, you don't have the model that you want supported in RunInference by default, you can create a model handler, which is what we are doing here, okay? So for the model handler here, so we need to define a couple of methods. We need to define the load model method, okay? And then the RunInference method. The load model, so what it makes, it prepares the model to be used from this method, okay? So we need to do something here. So what can we do here? So if I go back to AI Studio, okay, so and I try to use test prompt, okay, for instance, this one here. Okay, whatever you do in AI Studio, you can have a look at the code. See, this is the code that you need to run in order to be able to use this model. Okay, so we can. It's a little bit complex here because there is a lot of code. Okay, so we don't need exactly all this code to run the model, but we see here, for instance, a way to initialize a model. Okay, if we can actually see the model contents, if I can find it, which I cannot find it right now, but it is. Yeah, so this is how you call the model. Okay, so let me just close this, go back to the notebook. So how can we use this model in our notebook? So we need to import one of the dependencies. Let's call Google dot generative AI as Gen AI. Let's call it like this. Okay. And then when we so here we need to initialize the Gen AI code, Gen AI. Hopefully this will autocomplete. Well, it's actually, the AI is actually doing my work. So we need to configure this with the API key, okay? And then we don't return this yet, okay? We configure this. And now we are gonna be using some parameters for our model, okay? So if we go to the AI Studio, so we can see that, for instance, so we can use temperature. Okay, well, there's a lot of, see, well, the AI is really doing a lot of stuff for me. So I'm gonna put here a 1, for instance. This option I'm not gonna use, okay? Here I'm gonna use 0.9. Top K, I'm gonna increase it a little bit, 64. Max output tokens, well, 1024. We're not gonna need so much, okay? So because remember, we need just to answer with the capital name, okay? So a few tokens should be enough, okay? So this is fine, okay? And then important is then the answer type response. It doesn't autocomplete this. Okay, let me actually double check that. Oh, this is what I want. Okay, so I want this to respond in just in plain text. Okay, I don't want JSON output or whatever. And now I'm gonna create the model. Okay, so the model, it's called Gen AI generative. Well, it doesn't autocomplete. Let's see if the AI is not smiling at me now. I need to write all the details. So the model name, okay. So for the model name, I'm gonna go back to AI Studio. Okay. So let me share this back here, and let's see if I can get the model name here. For instance, see, I'm gonna use this one here, but I cannot. Well, let me get the code from here. Model name. So this is the model name that I'm gonna use. Okay. In this method, we need to define the model. Okay, in this case, this is how we define a Gemini models. This is how we call it. Okay, we need a few parameters. Okay, which I don't think they are strictly necessary, but well, just to make sure that the example works as I expect it to work. So I included these parameters because, well, these models are probabilistic. So let's try to make the demo work. Okay. And then where is the input of the user combined with the prompt? It's here, okay, see? This is what I said, this could have been included as a variable in the input of the class, okay, in the constructor of the class, but we put it here, okay? Now the Google API key. So this is the value that I have here in this left side of the notebook, all right? You need to import it, okay? I imported with this option in the left side of the notebook, and you need to create it first in AI Studio, okay? Once you have created it, let me put this, okay? So we can run the pipeline. So this just creates a P collection, a parallel collection, the main data structure in Apache Beam out of the input that we have created, okay? So this is just our input, okay? And now this, it's calling countries, it's passing countries as input to the RunInference transform. And the RunInference transform, this is the model that is gonna be used, okay? And this is the code that we have written, okay? The answers, you can see this line run immediately because this works with lazy evaluation. And now, hopefully, this will work and we will see some output. Let's see if we can get. It's a little bit slow because we are using a slower model, which works probably better, but it's probably an overkill for this use case here. Okay, now, okay, good. Okay, see, I hope this is not frozen now. Okay, so this is how it works. Okay, so remember, RunInference is just a handy way to have any kind of model here. For this use case, I went to the most complex case where we need to create our own handler. Okay, but then you don't need to do that for a lot of other models. Okay, so TensorFlow, PyTorch, and a lot of other models. Okay, so you can just use them as is with this transform RunInference. Okay, so I believe that Apache Beam is probably the technology that is the most suitable for creating streaming inference pipelines because it's super easy to integrate with any kind of model. Okay, the example that we have done here is super small and tiny. Okay, but this example could have been run in a real runner with a large amount of data, doing all the inferences for different entries in parallel. You can also configure if the runner supports this to the runner to use a GPU, okay, that will be leveraged in this step running the RunInference to do the inference more quickly. So yeah, so have a look at the documentation of Apache Beam ML, okay, because there are lots of possibilities. Yeah, and consider using Apache Beam the next time you need to do an streaming inference pipeline, also or a batch inference pipelines. Okay, so the Beam works differently in Beam. Beam works both in batch and streaming. Okay, so this is all that I had for today.